Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're diving into a revelation that might just leave you speechless. A revelation about Operation Sindoor, where, according to reports, the Indian Navy came within a hair's breadth of devastating Pakistan completely. According to multiple reports, the Indian Navy stood poised on the brink of a strike so decisive, so overwhelming, that it could have shattered Pakistan's naval power in a single heartbeat. The orders were clear, the targets marked. A full spectrum of high-value sites deep inside Pakistan. Missile batteries stood ready, their silent warheads waiting for just one command. Among those targets, the beating heart of Pakistan's maritime lifelines, the Karachi harbor, a critical hub whose destruction would have echoed across the region. The Navy had its sights locked in, a steel resolve behind every torpedo and cruise missile, prepared to rewrite the map of the Arabian Sea if the green light had come. This was not just a military maneuver. It was a moment where history itself held its breath, as one nation stood on the edge of unleashing its power. At that moment, reports suggest that the Pakistani Navy was so concerned about the Indian Navy's posture that its ships remained inside their harbors for several days, refraining from venturing into open waters. Pakistani naval forces, aware that the Indian Navy had them in its targeting systems, appeared to wait and watch, hoping that India would not initiate a strike. Eventually, when a Pakistani reconnaissance aircraft was sent to assess whether the Indian ships had withdrawn, it reportedly encountered an Indian MiG-29 on patrol, signaling its presence from close range. According to multiple accounts, the Pakistani Navy was completely rattled, and the main reason was INS Vikrant. Whenever you hear the name INS Vikrant, you might think of a single ship moving alone. But that is not how aircraft carriers operate. Vikrant moves with an entire carrier battle group, a powerful formation of ships and submarines. Let's break down that battle group. Vikrant itself carries about 30 MiG-29 fighter jets, along with Kamov helicopters for airborne early warning, HAL Dhruv helicopters for anti-submarine warfare, and more. Alongside Vikrant sail two destroyers, usually Kolkata class or Visakhapatnam class, both loaded with BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles and Barak 8 air defense missiles. They also have full-fledged anti-submarine warfare capabilities. In addition, there are usually two frigates in the group, again equipped with BrahMos and Club N missiles. There is typically a corvette, often from the Kamorta class, providing dedicated anti-submarine warfare, because any serious task force must be ready to counter enemy submarines. Submarines also accompany the group, usually one or two, such as Kalvari-class diesel-electric subs, or even Kilo-class units. And let's not forget the support ship, often an INS Shakti-class fleet tanker, which provides logistics, fuel, and resupply. The Indian Navy's strike group was reportedly positioned close enough to Pakistan that its BrahMos missiles could have engaged targets effectively if required. This presence alone is believed to have had a significant deterrent effect on the Pakistani Navy. According to reports, Pakistani naval vessels remained docked inside Karachi harbor, refraining from movement and waiting to see if India would escalate further. There were additional chilling details reported about the operation. The Indian Navy was said to be on full, hot standby, with instructions to lock on to pre-identified targets and maintain readiness to launch if final orders were given. The operational plans reportedly included land attack missiles, aimed at targets deep inside Pakistan, beyond just engaging naval assets. And yes, there were at least two occasions during Operation Sindoor when the Indian Navy was literally one button away from destroying Pakistan's frontline naval assets and its coastal infrastructure. The targets reportedly included Pakistani Navy vessels, which would have been highly vulnerable had they moved into open waters. In addition, Pakistan's land-based coastal defense installations were also on the list of potential targets and were being monitored for possible strikes if final authorization had been given. That is why, according to reports, the Pakistani Navy largely kept its vessels in harbor, choosing not to deploy them into open waters. The Indian Navy maintained significant maritime dominance in the Arabian Sea during this period. Pakistan's frontline assets, including frigates and corvettes, reportedly remained docked, possibly calculating that by staying in port, they could avoid escalation and potential strikes. In fact, That strategy of remaining in harbor and avoiding engagement may have been effective for the Pakistani Navy. Analysts suggest that had they attempted to challenge the Indian naval presence directly, their assets could have faced significant losses. The dominance India displayed in the Arabian Sea during this period is something military planners will remember for years. Pakistan's navy, even its air assets, were too terrified to challenge Vikrant's carrier group. Reports also indicate that Pakistan did not deploy its JF-17 or F-16 aircraft over the Arabian Sea, likely due to the elevated risk posed by the continuous patrols of Indian MiG-29 fighters in the area. In fact, reports suggest that even after a ceasefire was in place, it took several days before Pakistan sent a reconnaissance aircraft to survey the situation. When they did, the Indian Navy reportedly detected it on radar immediately. An Indian MiG-29 was launched and approached the Pakistani aircraft at a close distance, estimated between 100 and 150 meters, displaying its armed missile bays as a clear signal to disengage and return to base. The Pakistani reconnaissance aircraft reportedly turned back immediately after encountering the Indian MiG-29. Observers suggest that Pakistan's Navy was operating under considerable caution during this period. One question that still comes up today is why India did not authorize a full-scale naval strike when its forces were in such a commanding position. According to multiple open-source reports, the Indian Navy had been told to hold position and avoid being the first to escalate. This policy of calculated restraint was intended to maintain a strong deterrent posture, to signal readiness and resolve while still leaving the door open for de-escalation if Pakistan did not act first. In other words, the Indian Navy was prepared for decisive action, but its orders were to wait. The thinking was simple. If Pakistan initiated hostilities, India would respond swiftly and overwhelmingly, but it would not fire the first shot. This approach is consistent with India's long-held doctrine of responsible deterrence, where military might is displayed but not used preemptively. At the same time, there were reports that some Indian naval assets did participate in strikes against land-based air defense positions, including critical sites in Karachi and at Bellary. These were limited and targeted actions intended to neutralize threats to India's own ships and aircraft. However, official details on exactly what weapons were deployed or what assets were involved remain classified and may never be fully disclosed due to national security sensitivities. Throughout this tense standoff, the Pakistani Navy chose not to fire a single missile or torpedo. Analysts believe that Pakistan's naval command understood the extremely high stakes involved. Even one provocation, a single shot, could have triggered a devastating counterstrike from India that would have had irreversible consequences. That calculation may have driven Pakistan to adopt a posture of near total silence, keeping their ships inside port and avoiding any open engagement. From a maritime strategy perspective, this episode demonstrated a new level of dominance for the Indian Navy. It showed how India's maritime power projection has grown, from carrier battle groups to stealth destroyers to advanced submarines, all working in coordination to deliver a credible deterrent. These assets were positioned at ranges where powerful systems, like the BrahMos missile, could hit high-value targets almost instantly. Even after the ceasefire, Pakistan took several days to regain the confidence to send out reconnaissance aircraft. And when they finally did, the Indian Navy's radar systems immediately detected the Pakistani plane. A MiG-29 was scrambled and intercepted it at a close distance of just 100 to 150 meters, showing a visible display of fully loaded missile bays, a silent but very clear warning not to misjudge the situation. In response, the Pakistani aircraft retreated almost immediately, reflecting the psychological pressure that India's dominance had created during those days. For India, this was a demonstration of not just military strength, but also discipline, planning, and measured escalation control. Rather than rushing to attack, the Indian Navy held its ground, forcing its adversary to think twice and ultimately achieving deterrence without a full-scale war at sea. This kind of posture requires tremendous confidence, not only in one's weapons, but also in leadership, in intelligence gathering, and in the ability to coordinate complex operations across multiple platforms. These lessons matter. In an age where maritime security is becoming more and more critical, whether for energy routes, trade protection, or safeguarding territorial waters, India's ability to dominate the Arabian Sea sends a strong message to the entire region. It shows that India will protect its national interests, but will do so with calculated precision and strategic maturity. And these are the stories you rarely hear in the loud, opinionated primetime debates. You rarely hear about the calm, professional side of India's military, where decades of investment in technology, training, and doctrine come together when it matters most. This incident stands as proof of how far India's strategic confidence has grown and how the country is prepared to defend its interests with a modern, well-coordinated force. As India continues to build up its naval capabilities, with more advanced submarines, next-generation destroyers, and even a third aircraft carrier being considered, its position in the region will only become stronger. This is part of a larger pattern of India asserting itself not just on land, but across the seas, ensuring no one can easily challenge its security or its economic lifelines. In the future, these kinds of silent standoffs may become more common, as geopolitical rivalries play out over oceans and maritime choke points. But Operation Sindoor's lessons will be remembered, that patience, preparation, and a credible show of strength can be even more effective than a first strike. India's carrier battle groups, its stealth ships, its advanced anti-submarine assets, all were ready to change the course of regional history with one order. That confidence, built over years of hard work and technological advances, is now a key pillar of India's security strategy. If you found this breakdown informative and eye-opening, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We will keep bringing you these deeper, balanced looks at defense and strategy so you can stay ahead of the mainstream headlines. Remember, stay aware, stay proud, and stay motivated.